As many of you know, and possibly a lot of you actually did tune in and watch it, there was a session with Immigration New Zealand just on Friday, two days ago, looking at the new S6 residence visa, the one-off 2021 residence visa. We then had a session with NZAMI, which is probably one of the better industry groups that afternoon. They actually featured several of the same INZ staff in both sessions. They didn't really provide us with a great amount of new information, stating that all the information that was already out there was basically all they knew. They did provide a few clarifications as to how they're interpreting the information that we have already seen, which we're going to sort of cover in this video. It is 1:25 p.m. here on Sunday, October 17th, 2021. My name is Arran Hunt. I'm a partner at the law firm Stace Hammond, and I head up the immigration team there. As always, this is not legal advice. This is just our commentary on immigration here in New Zealand. Looking for legal advice, please get in contact with us at the addresses in the description down below. And please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll try and respond to as many comments as possible on our videos when we get a chance. We are planning some live Q&A sessions in the next few weeks, so please go over to our Facebook page, follow that, and you'll see the notifications will be going live on Facebook video to answer your questions where and when we can. Now I'm just going to go through the things we learnt on Friday, just in the order that I wrote them down. I've got my notes here on the other screen. They mentioned several times that the guiding principle of this visa was simplicity and the need to get things through quickly and easily. They said that about 3/4 of applicants will be eligible under the settled criteria, being here in New Zealand on the 29th of September 2018 and here for at least 3/4 of the time since then. They said that those who arrived on the 1st of October 2018 or later would not be eligible under this criteria. So that is if you're going under the 3 S's. You've got the settled, skilled, and scarce. So the skilled is $27 per hour or more. Scarce is on one of the lists. Settled is being in New Zealand for at least that 3-year period. So the majority will go through this application under that settled category. So it isn't clear about those who arrived before the 29th of September 2018, but who may have been offshore on that day, or whether being in New Zealand on that day was a requirement. That wasn't made clear. When to set their full rules on that. We expect that they don't know either, so they sort of don't dodge that question. But they are pretty certain that if you are here from 1 October 2018 or later, as when you arrive in the country, you need to try and find one of the other criteria to go through, either the $27 per hour or a job that appears on the scarce list. They confirmed that you can change job during this period between the 29th of September and whenever you apply, 1 December or 1 March. Actually, you can also change visa types. You can go from post-study work visa to a essential skills work visa. That is fine. You also change the basis of your eligibility between the scarce list and the skilled list. Now, of course, if you're already on the settled list, the time in New Zealand, it doesn't actually matter because you're going under that. But if you, on 29th of September, say you were working in a job on the scarce list, say you were a caregiver, and you got an offer to go work in a job that wasn't on the scarce list, but it does on the $27 per hour or more skills requirement between that first date and the date you apply, then you can change across to that as long as you remain eligible in any way for this visa. So I've had a lot of questions about that, people who are worried about their visa expiring or having an offer of another job or wanting to change job. You are allowed to do that. They confirmed that on Friday, as long as you do remain eligible. Just be careful that you are going to stay eligible. There was a mention, strangely once, they sort of said it in passing, that about how they were going to prioritize applications made in phase 1 on 1 December 2021. Now, understanding from what they've said previously was that there would be no priority given to any applications apart from basically being you're in phase 1, otherwise you're in phase 2. So if you're in phase 1, you effectively get a priority over phase 2 because you can apply earlier. But there has been, as far as we're aware, it was going to be done on when you're going to apply. So that may have just been a comment that was given an error or was given, and I've heard it in a different way than they meant. But it did sound like there was going to be some sort of priority given some way in that phase 1. So for now, until we see the rules, we're going to assume that there isn't going to be, because that just be overcomplicating that first initial phase, which is a smaller phase. But we will be checking the final rules to see whether there is some sort of priority given to some applications over others, so that those who apply on 1 December will be ranked in some way, or whether it's basically going to be whoever applies first gets in first, which is how we expect it to actually work. Okay, as to partners being included, normal partnership requirements apply, including living together for at least 12 months is needed. So we don't see this as being any way to help those who haven't been able to meet that living together requirement, even for just a short period to come to the country. It isn't also clear yet if those granted residence will be able to use it to enter the country due to the weird way that residence visas work. We covered that in the video before several times, but very, very quickly, residence visas that are granted to those who are onshore. Those who are offshore get a chance to come to the country, and on arrival, they get given residence. But of course, if you are offshore and you have no right to enter the country, you can't enter the country to get it. It's a strange one. People who actually were, just as a quick example, who were granted residence because, say, their partner was onshore in New Zealand, got residence through skilled migrants, say in December 2019, January 2020, and were then given a period to come to New Zealand to get residence. Once the border closed, they couldn't come. So they had 1 year to come into the country and they couldn't enter New Zealand. So the minister has been extending that right to enter New Zealand several times now, and that's sort of being extended again. But they can't enter the country to use that residence visa until the border is open. So this here will be interesting to see how they're going to handle this. They did mention the inclusion of partners, but they didn't ever mention whether partners would actually be able to use it until the border opens or not. So we may see those of you who are applying in December with partners offshore who perhaps have had years living together, easy can prove that the evidence that you're going to apply, you'll get residence, and then have to wait to actually be able to use it. That's what we're thinking might be the case, because immigration would not mention how that was going to work. Okay, they said that people should leave their SMC application in place. This is what they said during the morning session. So you shouldn't be looking to end it. They can just then transfer the funds across from one application to the other. But again, we want to see as to how this is defined in the rules, because we heard previously about people sort of, applying for one and cancelling SMC. We also heard that if you have both going at once, this application will take precedence. So if your SMC is about to be granted on 1 December, don't apply for this because, well, don't get advice about applying for this because it may then stop that application and push it across into a whole new queue. So if you're in that situation, whether you have SMC, like, do I apply, don't I apply, look at the rules or come talk to us about the rules, and we'll try and work out which is going to give you the faster, better way to residency. And that's about all we actually learned in that morning session. Now, we've heard some grumbling from people who that there was so little that was learned from the webinar. There was no real new information there. But I think we need to remember that Immigration New Zealand can only provide the information that they have. It does appear that they were not being utilised by the minister as they could have been in the formulating of policy here. So basically, the minister, it appears, has policy advisors or analysts or people who are drafting the policies who are not part of INZ, or INZ are basically being kept very much on the fringes, on the outside as to how this is going to work. So they're doing a very difficult job in trying to provide what they can information-wise and how they interpret it, but without actually given much more than, or any more than we've been given. So we honestly just wish that they had been used more in this policy. We may see actually a better policy. And also the immigration community, myself, other lawyers, other immigration advisors, were also sort of used perhaps in some one-onee to get a good policy going, but it is what it is. Now, later in the day, we had a webinar with NZAMI. As I said, they're one of the better immigration industry groups. They're very vocal, a lot of great webinars and seminars. Again, we didn't learn much about the new visa there, but we did get some interesting statistics, which I wanted to sort of just cover a few of them now. So between February 2020 and now, so February 2020 and September 2021, so basically between the month before COVID hit and the last month, employer-assisted work visas were down, were up 22%. So that would be essential skills, work to residence visas. Other work visas like post-study work visas and working holiday visas were down 52%. Partnership visas for citizens, residents, workers and students were down 17%. RSC workers were down 19%. That's the visas that allow sort of fruit picking, but that's not that. No, isn't that surprising? Because February 2020 wouldn't have been a month where there's a lot of applications being made for RSC workers, being the end of the season. We also had student visas, but excluding those for domestic students like dependents, were down 53%, which is expected. Actually, I thought it'd be more than that. And visitors were down 90%, visitor visa applications being processed. What this shows is that there have been a lot fewer visas being granted, which may explain how the minister believes that this S6 residence visa can be processed in time, because the workloads are so significantly down on where they were before. But we've also at the same time lost a lot of overseas branches which have closed. And I don't believe Immigration New Zealand has increased New Zealand staff size to counter for that. So we're still questioning as to whether it's going to be going through. The fact that they say 70% of applicants will go through under the settled allowance, basically just you're been in New Zealand for more than 3 years and you are eligible, you hold one of those visas make you eligible, means that those will be very easy visas to grant. So 70%, so 7 in every 10 applications should basically just be looking at it, ticking the boxes, off you go, until you start bringing in partners and dependents, mainly partners, and you start looking at the documentation for partnership, and that's when things get slower. So we're still questioning that 12-month time frame. The other interesting graph they had was in relation to other critical work visas granted. Now, picking out just a couple of them there, the highest category of numbers granted for other critical work visa was 3,500 for research and development. Now, we'd expect that would include a large number of people who are transiting New Zealand to Antarctica and from Antarctica, because New Zealand is one of the sort of the main route to Antarctica, which couldn't be cut off because they need to be able to get in and out of Antarctica. So I think that's probably 3,500 of mainly Antarctica researchers coming and going from the continent. We had 2,500 for primary industries, which would cover a lot of the exemptions given for certain roles. Sports and recreation had 1,156, so All Blacks, sailors, and other athletes. Film and television, 721, so actors, those coming in to do the TV shows, the movies. Entertainment and the arts, 513, so a lot of performers, often who are coming to New Zealand for one or two gigs or a couple of performances and then leaving again, so they were, we'd expect them to be typically very short-term time in New Zealand. ICT and digital, so IT workers coming to New Zealand for typically a longer period, just 215 people, so 215. So we let in 5 times more athletes than IT professionals, or granted other critical work visas to come to the country. And of course, remember that is, sorry, I must make a correction there. So this won't be All Blacks. All Blacks are New Zealand citizens residents. This is those who require a visa. So we let in 5 times more athletes and their staff who aren't New Zealand citizens and residents or playing for the country. And then we let in IT professionals, or granted the visas for IT professionals over that period. And 2.5 times more entertainers in the arts than IT professionals. Now, for me, that just seems like a wasted opportunity to bring in more of the world's best in IT at a time that they actually want to be here. We are on the bottom side of the world, away from major markets. We have this beautiful environment. People want to come and live here. We have people like Gabriel from Steam, Valve. Great having him now here as a resident. Fantastic him being here. I want to see more of his team here, more of Amazon's team here, Microsoft, Oracle, bring all these people into the country. But yet we seem to find there's more value in bringing in entertainers and athletes for short stays than bring in IT professionals. So that's just, I suppose, my personal view on that. But that's all we really learnt that day. It wasn't a great deal, a little bit of stats, a little bit of information there. We look forward to the final rules being released in hopefully a couple of weeks, and we'll be covering those in probably a couple of videos. There will be a lot of information to cover. Of course, we'll be doing those live Facebook sessions, going through questions and answers that you may have. If you want to know when they're going to be, definitely go and follow Stace Hammond on Facebook. We will link in the description below as to how to find us there. We'll post when we're going to have those sessions. Try and do a few of those when these rules do come out. So we give you a lot of information. Try and cover what we can. and is trying to find how this is going to work, or how we interpret it is going to work. We're actually also looking to take on more staff at State Hammond to help with immigration, whether you're a lawyer or an advisor. If you have some experience in immigration, you're keen to come on board, please get in contact with me. And that is it for today. So for everyone out there, kia kaha, stay safe this weekend, and please go and get vaccinated.